What's up, everybody? This is BakaBites. I'm Frankfurter. That is Magically Average. And today we are going to be reviewing the summer 2024 anime season. So we'll be talking about all the shows that we watched, some of the shows that we didn't finish, and maybe getting into some of the shows that we want to get back into, and kind of putting a whole grade on the season as a whole. I always forget until we start recording that is one of the things that we do every single episode for one of these reviews is like, what show do you want to go back and watch? Like, what do you want to make time for and watch?
I was gonna say we sometimes we forget to do like a full grade of the season. I feel like that's been a tendency for us to forget how to just grade.
We did it all last year, didn't do it at all this year. I'm like, let's bring it back. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so we're gonna get into it. I've gotten through 9 shows this season, like completely start to finish. Actually 10 because I forgot I didn't put one on here. And I've started a handful of others that I didn't finish. Some I will be going back to, some I will not be going back to. So do you want to start with kind of your lower tier, just like kind of disappointments, or just like this was meh, in my opinion, or would you rather me just kind of
No, we can do that.
Go.
No, let's start with that. Partially because summer season, when we did our review, I remember a couple months back, I had mentioned how I'm going to be really selective with this season.
Yeah,
because there were a number of like top tier A-level anime coming out. Some of which I haven't been caught up on. So like, I obviously didn't watch Oshi No Ko season 2 because I haven't watched through all of season 1 yet. I'm not caught up on My Hero. I think, what was it? Slime was coming out this season too.
That was a continuation from last season, but it ended this season. Yes.
Yeah. So I obviously didn't watch it from last season because I'm not through that one yet. So like, there were a number of like continuing anime that I didn't watch, partially because I'm not caught up yet. But so I focused mainly on like new anime coming out, and there were a lot on my list. I think I ended up with like 13 to 15 that I really wanted to watch for new series coming out because they just looked really interesting. I eventually dwindled it down to 12, and I gotta admit there were a couple of like really upsetting ones, just in terms of quality.
I wouldn't say that they were necessarily upsetting. There were definitely some that I was a bit more disappointed, but I don't think there was really anything that truly was just like, man, this was a complete letdown.
No. Well, okay, sorry. Letdown is different. I went into a lot of these with just kind of an open mindset, reading only a synopsis, knowing very little about it, and thinking like, okay, you have a good premise, you have a good setup, storyline potential. What can you make of it? And it was more upsetting from that regard because it was just a big swing and a miss, right? So they were like very easy drops. So starting in that vein, the 3 that come to mind for me are Pseudo Harem, Miyanoka Punch, and My Wife Has No Emotion.
Okay.
Pseudo Harem.
Of those 3, I started 2, or I finished 1, started another, and did not watch.
Okay. Pseudo Harem, I think, was the most upsetting of them all. Because
I would agree.
Yeah.
That one is my stinker of and by stinker, by no means is it necessarily like awful or bad or unwatchable. It was just a disappointment because I think when we did the season preview, Pseudo Harem was my dark horse. After reading that description, I was like, you know what? If this is done properly, this could be a phenomenal show.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
No, I agree. Yeah. It had a great setup too of like girl who's interested in drama meets up with boy, and they have kind of like a melding of minds type moment where they both reference the same story coincidentally upon a meetup. But then it was almost as if you combined Nagatoro with the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You, from the mindset of like, there's very short, sweet blips in each episode of like something happening, right? There's it's clear that there's no consistent through line throughout it. It's just going to be like little tidbits each and every episode, like short stories, almost as if it was like a 4-panel comic or 4-panel manga.
Like gag manga.
Yeah, but it was kind of obvious from the very beginning, like, okay, it's just going to be focused on their relationship, right? Like, budding involvement from like friends to potential lovers, whatever the case might be. And so that's the Nagatoro side. The 100 Girlfriends side is because
I'm wondering where in the heck you pulled this one from.
She basically has, because she's a drama student, right? She acts out all these different like girlfriend tropes to the main protagonist guy. And so it's as if she's playing like 5 different women in one character. He's like, oh my gosh, you're the tsundere character. Oh my gosh, you're playing like the cold like ice queen character. Oh, you're like the lolly. Like it's all those like typical like harem type tropes meshed into one. And it got old really like so fast. I watched it the first episode and I'm like, I'm already kind of bored with it because it's just these gag moments each and every time with no real payoff at the end.
Yeah, I would agree. It really reminded me of Nagatoro, but like a very light and more wholesome. In the sense that it's like there was no real teasing. If anything, the boy was teasing the girl in this instance. But it was just lighthearted. It was a lot of fluff in the sense of just like, this is just like a nice like little piece of cotton candy that I can eat, but I don't want to overeat on the cotton candy and get an upset stomach. Like this just wasn't.
Yeah,
it didn't hit the notes that I wanted it to hit. As you kind of mentioned most of what I thought as well. Of just it was okay. There was no through line, and the comedy wasn't necessarily the greatest. It was just kind of reused comedy for most things, just different scenarios. So for me, this one was unfortunately like I would say stinker, but even then I wouldn't even call it a stinker because it was very inoffensive. There was nothing great about it. There was nothing bad about it. It was just cotton candy. You just can't eat that much of it.
Yeah. It's also, I think the other frustrating part to it too was that they had kind of all the elements that you would want in a unique type slice of life romance, like rom-com type. Like the reason why I like the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You is because it's surprisingly wholesome for a harem, right? There's a plentiful amount of comedy in it to the point where like it's not all this like raunchy, ecchi type stuff. Like it is heavy comedy, which is great because you want to try to offset that with trying to avoid being like too overtly crude, I guess, with your harem. And that's why like that's the immediate draw for me for 100 Girlfriends. Nagatoro is just because it's like this evolvement of going from like bullied to basically like friends to now they're fighting on behalf of each other to eventually like further down the line a relationship of some kind, whether it's like a long-standing friendship or whatever. I don't want to go too deep into the Nagatoro one because I know it just ended too. The manga at least. But like Pseudo Harem had pieces of each one. You're like, okay, if you could fit these together, it'd be great. But it was basically like they took the puzzle pieces and they were like, they don't fit, but we're going to try to make it. And then it just sort of crumbled in their hands.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more that I can say about this, especially since, we've already been talking about it for the past 5 minutes, essentially. So
it's just that was my big stinker. That was the one that I was looking forward to.
I was.
It was your dark horse.
It was my dark horse, and that's why I'm just kind of like I don't want to poo-poo on this because, like, god damn, do I know how to pick them?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think also on your list, My Wife Has No Emotion and
Mayonaka Punch.
Mayonaka Punch, yeah. I want to hear your opinions on My Wife Has No Emotions because that was one that I had put on my watch list to just be like, if I have time, I'll like watch it just to see how it is, and I never got around to it.
I had seen the manga for it. I was like, you know what, this could be a fun read because slice of life stuff always gets me. It's my like area of expertise now. I feel like in terms of the types of anime that you and I both watch. I always gravitate towards slice of life rom-com type stuff. So My Wife Has No Emotions definitely got me just from the standpoint of like, okay, another unique twist on a slice of life rom-com type. I watched through like half the first episode and I was like, nope. It's just it was everything about it was cookie cutter except his wife is a robot. Like that's it. Like there's nothing more to it. It was just like I have too much time in I don't have enough time in my day between work and commuting and everything like that. I can't go out and find a woman. I'm getting up in age, so what did I do? I went out and bought a wife at a store, and she helps clean in my house and stuff. That's it. That's the entirety of the show. It's like in the first like 5 minutes, they just spell it out for you. And I'm sure people would be like, well, if you watch it more, they'll get deeper into like how they navigate through society and like the dynamics of a relationship between a human and a robot. And I'm like, I've already seen iRobot. Okay. I've seen.
You sure you don't mean you've seen her?
I've seen Terminator. I've seen her. Okay. I get it. We've seen this trope before. Adding an animated twist to it does not make it any much more entertaining. It's just it came off as basically just, hey, our only true like unique difference in the realm of rom-com slice of life is that the wife is a robot. That's it.
Fair
That's
enough.
just not, it's not enough for me anymore. And I've said this before when we were doing our previews and reviews. You really have to get me with a good hook to entertain me with a slice of life these days, because it's starting to get into the realm of isekais where it's like if you just carbon copy print with like a couple of like color changes here and there, maybe characters' hair look different or they have different eye colors or whatever, or that's good enough. But it's not good enough. It's not. You have to have a good hook, right? The isekais that we love have amazing hooks to them. All the rest of them are very just carbon copy. It's the same thing with slice of life and rom-com these days. It's like, you have to have something. Yeah, you have to have something that makes you different, that makes you entertaining. Like all the ones of recent memory, like Comey Can't Communicate, The Dangers in My Heart, the 100 Girlfriends, like I said, like there's a lot that have come out in the recent years that all have like really good, unique personalities, we'll say, to them, or qualities, characteristics to them that make them entertaining. So you have to have that. Having a robot wife is not enough. it's just not.
That's
not
going to draw you in.
No, it's not the
moneymaker right there. It's
absolutely not. Yeah, it's the bare minimum.
So before we get into Mayanaka Punch, because I do want to talk at length to that one because I watched that one completely. There were a couple that I dropped and I'm not going to go back to, and I just want to go over those two at least right now real quick while we're kind of talking about sinkers.
Yeah.
First one being Plus Sized Elf.
Oh yeah.
I watched the first episode. Granted, this is like a series. I think it's 12 episodes, 12 minutes each. Very short. Plus Size Elf, it's funny. It's like, ooh, haha, nudity. Like, it's fine. It's funny. It's not the greatest. It's passable at best. It's not great. I did not need to watch another episode. It's like, if this is going to be the shtick, I'm good.
It fell into that same camp of like, they went too hard on being fan servicey and being like all into the nudity piece versus actually sticking to the comedy aspect of it. Because the manga is really funny, right? Albeit it has nudity in it too. I feel like I'd have to go back and read through, or at least look through the first volume. I don't remember there being that much nudity in it. No, like to that extent. Right. It felt like kind of a crutch they laid on of like, well, if we don't get him with the comedy, maybe we can get the pervs in here with the nudity. Right. And it's like, I'd rather you not do that because it's just it doesn't stick that way. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed reading the manga for this because the comedy is really funny. It's also one of those ones where it's not a harem, but there's a significant amount of like female characters in it where you can like start to put it together.
Be a harem,
yeah. Well, the fun part about it is that there's more interactions between like the characters you meet versus the interactions between like the protagonist and those characters. Like there's like little groups that form and like those interactions are fun. But yeah, I couldn't even get through the first episode. I was like, every single second was just nudity.
I watched the first one. I was like, no, I'm good. This ain't it, Chief. But the other one that I dropped and I will not be watching. If anything, I will read it just to see if it gets any better. But episode 1 was so cringy and it hurt to watch. It was 2.5D Seduction.
No. Oh, that's a
I watched the
shame.
first episode. I was like, this physically hurts me. This hurts so bad.
Okay, do you want to know the only thing I'm going to say? Okay,
Dimensional Seduction is
yeah,
what it is.
2.5 dimensional,
not
yep.
2D.
Yeah, 2.5 dimensional seduction. Yeah. The one thing I'll say, the one thing I'll say that I think will prove that you should give it another shot is if you look at it from this perspective, right? Excuse my cat. If you look at it from the perspective of this is just Love, Chinabuyo, and Other Delusions in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
That's it. That's all it is. Because the main character is cringy as shit, right?
I watched that show like 3 years ago or something for the first time, and it hurt to watch me. But I was like, comedy at least the comedy was there. That I was like, that kept me going. For that show.
If you get through the first episode, the comedy gets better in 2.5. I watched through the first 3 episodes, and this is I'm going to continue it. I'm actually probably going to watch it the rest of the week. I loved it.
I would rather watch the 2.5 Dimensional Seduction. I would rather read it by far because it physically pained me to watch it.
It's so good. It's again, if you can approach it from the mindset of like this is just Love, Chinabuyo, and Other Delusions, but older now, right? That's all it is. You have the cringy main character, you have the airhead, you have like the one that lusts after the main character. Like you have all the elements of that anime. They're just older now. I will say what I'm surprised about is that it's not as ecchi as I would have imagined it to be. And I think
the first episode was pretty up there though.
It was pretty up there, but I view it the same way that I viewed My Dress Up Darling, right? With the level of etchiness and that like it's a part of that hobby, right? The cosplaying, cosram type hobby, right? Where like that's an aspect of it. They are transforming themselves to be the characters that they love, and like the one character's, they're pretty lightly clothed, we'll say. So it's like I appreciated the fact that they still stuck to that without going like too wild, like plus size elf. Thanks a lot. But yes, if you can get through the level of cringiness, it's really good. It's really funny. They have all of those like really stupid classic tropes of like the 2 female cosplayers like, oh no, our costumes got stuck together, help. And then there's all of the trip and fall bull crap. Like it's there, but I think it adds that level of like brevity, I guess, and just the ridiculousness of the main character who's this like, I refuse to fall in love with a real person. I must only stay true to a 2D. But then when the 2D person comes to life, they're like, well, now hang on a second.
Well, hold your horses
hence,
now, sir.
Hence the whole 2.5 dimensional seduction. Yeah. But no, this is one that I'm going to continue because I actually did really enjoy it. It's a
fair enough.
It's a jab.
I didn't want to poo-poo, but it just hurt.
It's a jab at it itself. I don't mean for it to be, but it's like a poor man's version of My Dress Up, I guess. It's less so focused on like
instead of a poor man's version of Dress Up, it's a horny man's version of Dress Up Darling.
I would disagree. Dress Up Darling is already horny. I don't know if that's accurate to say. I view it from the perspective of My Dress Up Darling actually teaches you a lot about like the cosplaying world, like in terms of like making cosplays, what goes into it, the events, all the photography around it too. This one's less focused on that and more so on like, how do you take something that's 2D and then make it into real life? It's only that's like fair. It's like that piece alone, like being as accurate as possible in cosplaying, less so the creation and making of a cosplay.
Fair enough. Moving on from that, there were 2 other shows that I started, and I'm on the fence of whether I'm going to continue them or not. I probably won't for the fact that time is a thing that I don't have a lot of when it comes to watching newer shows.
Sorry, I have to say this. I was this close to start the fucking Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared time.
Oh, boy.
Time is a thing that you wear on your wrist. That life.
Golly.
Yeah.
Anyways.
To a dark place. For any of you that know that, you're amazing. All right, anyway, continue.
Anyways, continuing. The first one being Dungeon People. This one I was really high on. I was really excited for. I just haven't had the time to go back and watch it. I watched the first two
You
episodes. I enjoyed the first two
you
episodes.
fucking suck. This is another great one.
I'm not saying it's bad.
You
I said I like it. I just don't know if I have the time to go back and watch it.
go back and
Unless
watch
if
it.
Okay, fine.
Do it.
I will make the time to watch Dungeon People because I did
It's
enjoy the
so
first two
good.
I watched the first two episodes and I really enjoyed it. I just fell off and forgot about it because high dive is a thing. Unless
Yeah.
it is something absolutely riveting like Oshi No Ko is every week, I'm not gonna I forget about it. But I'll move on
It's
from that
not
because I know you'll want to talk about that later. We'll talk about it later. But the
okay.
other one is my senpai is an Otokonoko. I watched the first episode. I enjoyed the first episode. It was actually a lot. I thought this was going to be kind of like more of a hardcore drama of just like, a boy cross-dressing, loving, wearing women's clothes and
Yeah.
just judgment and all that. And I was very surprised at the levity of it and the comedy that they had into it, surrounding both the senpai and the main girl. I really enjoyed the dynamic relationship between the two of them, and then the friend of the senpai who comes into the first episode. I enjoyed the dynamic relationship between him and the main girl as well.
Mhm.
This, by all means, was one of those shows that I was nervous for. That I was just like, I don't know, like, is it gonna just be super hardcore drama? But it turned out to be a lot more a breath of fresh air and a lot more fun than I had anticipated, at least from episode one.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I was hoping it would get a dub so I could catch up with it slowly but surely by watching the dub, but it never got one. But this one definitely is on still my watch list. I'll keep it there, and when I do have some time, I will definitely watch it because I did enjoy what I watched. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I know I'm going through a ton of mine of just like these are shows that I haven't done, but that's because I literally have like 11 more things to talk about, and I know you
Oh my
probably have
god.
like 6. Um, so really the only other shows that I have on my like I started but I have not finished or will continue list is My Dear Friend Nokotan. I watched episode 1. I absolutely loved the brain rot. I thought it was a lot of fun.
It's
I really enjoyed it.
it's
It
the
is
only
brain
best
rot
that's the
to the
only way
max.
to describe it is just brain rot.
It is brain rot to the max. I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was one of those things I was never in the mood to watch it at that point in time, so I didn't keep up with it. But
Yeah.
it is still on my watch list. I will definitely be watching it. Just got to make time for it. Be in the mood for it as well. And then the other one is something that I started today, and I'm pissed at myself for not starting it earlier, which is Wisteria Wand and Sword. By far one of the best episode ones of the season.
Nope.
Hands down.
No.
It had one of the best episode ones. And what I really, really wish I had known going in before the season is that it has the same author as Don Machi, aka Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? It has similarities in the sense of like the very first big major fight scene in episode 1 was between the main character and a creature that isn't necessarily a minotaur but is very similar to a minotaur, and it drew a lot of comparisons to Belcronel and the minotaur fight, minus the fact that the guy can't use magic. The way I would compare this is a serious version of Mashal, but instead of fists, it's using a sword to get through everything. I've watched the first 2 episodes. I've enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I will definitely be watching more of this. I will also say that the production value for this, whether it be the fight scenes or everything else in between, music and all the kind of scene, like every scene that isn't a fight scene, just the general animation is top tier. Is actually very good. The music is very good and the animation is very good. So as long as it can deliver on the story, which it's got me hooked in the first 2 episodes, because it's a very similar plot to something that I enjoy okay, but not enjoy like an amazing amount. Like Mashal's fine. It's not the most amazing thing in the world. I enjoy it more than Mashal. So I'm like, okay, if I watched all of Mashal, I'll give this a chance and see if the story progresses in a way that I enjoy. So yeah, Wisteria 1 and Sword, that's definitely on my watch list, like going forward, and I will be catching up on that very quickly. So,
Boo.
um, I'm looking at my list. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 outside of our top three. So I'm gonna
Oh
just
my
like
god.
blast through a few of these. Continuations from last season, Slime season 3, finished Slime season 3. Really enjoy. This is that one isekai show that I really enjoy. That is that guilty pleasure. It's not a great show by any means, but it is a very entertaining show. It's a very
Yeah.
entertaining show, and it just keeps your claws, like, it keeps its claws in you, and once you wanna watch more after the episode ends. So, I really enjoyed Slime season 3. I'm looking forward, they announced that, it's getting a movie and a season 4, so I'm looking forward to watching those. I don't know if the movie's gonna be canon or not, if it's gonna be vital. So we'll record maybe a video once we find out if it will. Maybe it's already out there that it is canon and or not canon, and we just don't know. I haven't done that much research. I just know that there's a movie and a season 4. So
I don't know.
slime, great. Uh, Spice and Wolf, I am like 2 episodes behind. I need to finish the season. But Spice and Wolf has been fantastic. It was nearly not necessarily a 1-for-1 in the sense of animation frames, etc., but like story beats, it was nearly a 1-for-1 until the very last arc
Hmm.
of the original show. So getting into that last arc, I was like, okay, what's gonna happen? And it being different, I was like, thank you for like I'm assuming this is where they go in the manga or in the light novels. So it's nice to see it go in a different direction than just be kind of a 1-for-1 of the original season. And then this is also getting a second season, so I am excited to watch more whenever it comes out. But I know that a lot of people were less than pleased at the fact that the art style got a bit of a different change. Like it didn't look the same as the original. I enjoyed the new art style. I thought that the characters were more aligned with what the manga was than the original show. Probably because I don't think the manga was out when the original show was coming out. I think it was just light novels. But I really enjoyed the new art style. The voice actor and actresses for the main 2 characters came back for the English dub as well. So hearing those voices was a delight. It was great. So thoroughly enjoyed Spice and Wolf. If you have not watched it, it's you can watch either or. It's fine. Just know that the last arc is just a little bit different in the new one. Um, Another one that I have not, or is a continuation, have not finished. I'm probably like an episode behind My Hero Academia season 7. I have read the entirety of it. I know how it ends. I know where we're at in the story in the anime. I am enjoying the ever living heck out of it. So this has been a very good season. We're in the very last arc of the series, so I don't think that they're going to wrap up the series with this season. I believe that's already been confirmed. So, looking forward to seeing what they do at the very end. If they do a movie or if they do a very short, kind of like limited time series for the final season, kind of like what they did with Attack on Titan. As much as I don't want to say or bring up that show, I hope that they do something special for the last remaining chapters of this series
Yeah.
because it's very good and they're handling it very well so far. I know that there's been some in my opinion, I feel like there have been some quality downgrades for especially one series of events that happens in the second half of season 7. So I really just hope that the rest of it just like remains better quality for the fact that every moment of the season and continuing is a high quality event essentially.
Hmm.
So hopefully they don't dip any more in quality. Going through a few more, have not caught up on Tower of God season 2. I'm about halfway through season 2 right now. I'm really enjoying it. I know a lot of people had some criticisms that it kind of just dumps you into they kind of Kingdom Hearts 2 you. They dump you into a new character into a different part of the tower and you're like, where the heck am I? What the heck is
That
going on? And like by episode 2 or 3, you're like, oh, that's a familiar face. I know this person. Cool. I'm back on it now.
That's just Attack on Titan season 2.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, season
4.
3
No,
and
season
4.
4. Season 4. They started with yeah. But I've been enjoying Tower of God season 2. I really like the where they have gone. Once I kind of got my bearings of the new characters and what they are doing, I enjoyed what they were doing. So I'll be continuing it. I'm about halfway through. But it's not, it's not the greatest thing on earth, but it's good. It's fun. And before I just throw it back to you, the last show that I haven't finished that I will be continuing because I am thoroughly enjoying it. And it's probably halfway through its season, maybe a little over half. Delico's Nursery.
Yeah.
We both looked at this series in the season preview and we were like, what is this even going to be about? We just see vampires and babies. And I watched episode 1 and I was hooked. I was hooked. It was great. This is one of those shows that I wish more people would talk about, but because it started literal mid-season, if not later, nobody really talked about it. And at least I haven't seen anybody talk about it. But the premise of the show is basically starts off with a house being raided and the lady of the manor basically being slain, and her telling the husband to love the children for the both of us, essentially. So for me and you. And so flash forward 6 months or whatever it is, and basically you find out that this vampire lord that's high up on the social status ladder, it was his wife that got killed, and he, instead of working with the vampire police and figuring out this large string of murders that are happening, he's taking care of children and everybody that's like kind of below the social ladder than him who is working on this case is like, hey, you need to be working with us. He's like, if you want to work with me, you have to bring your children, you have to babysit your children with me while I babysit my children, and we can work on it together. So basically this shows a bunch of gorgeous looking vampires babysitting their own kids and raising their own kids while trying to solve a string of murders. And to me, absolutely delightful. Loved it. Great premise. It's just so different and fun. And I love a good detective show. So for me, I was just like, this has the hook. This has the fun characters. This has everything to me. Yes, I'm in. So I will be watching this for when it ends. But now I'm down to 5 in our top 3. So I've been talking a while. Some more water. Talk to me about either Mayanaka Punch or something else.
I mean, I can. Mayanaka Punch is something that I didn't finish because I got bored. So I'm probably not going to talk much about that.
No, well, I do have things to say about it. So I do want to hear your opinion and why you got bored and what.
As we've stated before, first episodes are really important. I feel like if you slip and fall on a first episode, it could make or break a show, especially as a new one, and one where there might not be source material out in English yet for a lot of like the English readers, right? So it's important to hit a home run on your first episode. Mayanaka didn't do that for me. It was kind of like, I don't know. It was a lot of tripping and falling over itself, and it had a setup, but it really just kind of spelled it out early on, and it didn't leave a lot to the imagination, I would say. It just didn't offer me enough to keep me around.
I can see that. The first episode isn't necessarily great, but this is one of those things that I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a 3-episode try, and I did thoroughly enjoy this. This one, it didn't crack my top 3.
No,
it's probably number 6 on my list for the season.
Mm-hmm.
6 or 5, one of the two. But I did thoroughly enjoy this because the more you did watch, the better it did become. Because the first episode was kind of a weird character introduction. That felt very disjointed. You okay there, buddy?
It was you saying the more you did watch, the more you did become.
The more you watch, the better it became.
Yeah.
Um,
I was like,
but yeah, for me, again, the more you watch, the better it became. And it was a weird disjointed episode 1 in the sense that it did character introductions very oddly, and then it continued the character introductions into episode 2, I believe, and then
I mean, that's fine.
episode 3 through 5 were basically like let's make videos, and or episode 2 to 5 essentially, other than the character introductions, is let's make videos, let's take this channel, to the max. But they didn't really necessarily set any goals. And then it was halfway through the season that they actually had a concrete goal and an issue to deal with if they did not hit said goal. So for it to have the high stakes of something along the lines of just something bad happening if you don't hit this goal, it made it interesting in just seeing how they handled each situation that was thrown in their way. And then the kind of few twists that it had near the end were unsuspecting but very good. The final twist in the last episode is something you can see coming from a mile away. But I think that this series, it's an original series. It didn't have any source material before it. I think that this series did a great job in which other series have not done well recently, and that is having a good ending. This actually had a decently good ending to where I was like, you know what? I'm satisfied with this. I enjoyed this. I think that from start to beginning, it was solid. It may have started off a bit bumpy, but it got there at the end and it nailed the landing. And that's probably like 50% of the problem that most newer anime have, like newer originals. Licorice Recoil being like one of the only newer original animes that I feel like had a good ending. But we can look at Wonder Egg Priority had an awful ending. We can look
No,
at
you're
fucking
missing
Metallic Rouge, which had an awful ending,
you're
let
missing the
alone a
best one.
middle. What?
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish had a good one. It did.
Jellyfish
But
had a
I
fantastic ending.
yeah. We if you want to know our thoughts about Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, you can go watch our previous episode. But yeah, no, Jellyfish was one. To me, Jellyfish was, I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10, 8.5, something around there.
I thought it was
I
fantastic.
enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the most amazing thing. This is along the same vein. I would probably give this a 7.5 if I had to put a number on my Anaka Punch.
Wow.
Like it honestly was a lot better than I had anticipated because it did finally give it a through line with some stakes to it. And to me, that's part of the problem that some of these original animes have. They just don't know where they want to go. And the fact that they gave you a good through line and stuck the ending is more than half the battle, in my opinion.
I think my issue, though, is to what you were just referencing in that it didn't establish that until halfway through.
Yeah.
Like
I understand that that's a big problem.
Yeah, it's always hard going, especially into like an original anime too. Because if I think back to, I don't know, we have thoughts on this one, but like, Metallic Rouge, Licorice Recoil, like all the other originals, if you look at the first episodes alone, they had outstanding first episodes, like ones where you had clearly defined sort of like heroes arc, right? However you want to define it in storytelling, where it's not giving it away. You're not laying out the story and all of the ins and outs and the twists and turns. You're just setting the foundation of where the viewers can expect to go on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
My Anaka Punch, though, just sort of left me in the void. And I didn't really have any sort of direction on like what I should be following, what I could be expecting, like where this is going to lead to. It just sort of established that, hey, here is one character and what they've gone through. Here's another character and what they've gone through. They're going to meet, and that's all we're going to give you right now. And it's like, wonderful, I'm going to drop you now. Like it's so hard. And again, it comes with the territory now of having so many new anime released each season that if you don't stick a landing, it can be detrimental to people watching it. I will stick by that from now on. Again, unless you have source material, right? Unless you're a My Hero or a Jujutsu Kaisen or an Attack on Titan or something where people have been reading you, Chainsaw Man, right? People have been reading you to the
And
point
know that it's going to get better or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Or not even get better. Like they have an understanding already of what they're going to get into.
Yeah,
You can maybe have a slip up in the first episode, right?
that's fair.
That's okay. Or it can be a bit slower.
Yeah.
For an original though, especially, you have to hit the first episode, and this one missed.
That's fair because yeah, the first few episodes up until they do give you the through line is definitely character introduction, setting introduction, and here are the characters. You've met the characters. Here are their personalities
Yeah.
fully on display. Because I think by episode 3 or episode 4, they give one of the side characters like their own episode, like fully. And it's a great episode. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's one of the better character highlight episodes for a side character that I've seen in recent years. I think that it was a great episode, but it's one of those things that it is frustrating that they don't give you a through line earlier because they want to establish characters in their setting and what they're doing
Yeah.
rather than just like, okay, here's the plot. So
And
I get it from your perspective, and I get it from the full completion perspective too, of just how frustrating that could be for a viewer. But as somebody who saw this, loved the premise, loved the idea of just vampires making YouTube videos, I was in. I was gonna give it 3 episodes, and by the 3rd episode, I was like, yeah, it's got its claws in me. I'm gonna keep watching this.
yeah.
So I get it from both perspectives, but another one that I'll talk about, I don't know. You know what? I know one you didn't get to, so I'll talk about this one. Shy second season. I had a lot of criticism for Shy season 1 in the sense that it really was a lot of fluff and it didn't get to a lot of the meat and potatoes until the last like 3 to 4 episodes. And I my one hope and dream and wish for season 2 was get into more of that meat and potatoes, give us more of that world, give us more of the enemies fighting the enemies, etc. And I'm happy to say that most of this season was. There were a few episodes that obviously you have to take to set up the background of why they're fighting, who they're fighting, etc.
Right.
So I feel like they did linger a little bit in that sense, too much, but it was more so like instead of 4 episodes, it was a solid 6 to 7 episodes of this season rather than 3 or 4 were devoted to fighting the enemy and giving you lore and more information about this overarching enemy that we're going to be along with for the series. So to me, Shy season 2 was a heck of a lot better than season 1. There's still those complaints of just kind of too much fluff when you don't necessarily need all of that character setup, because they introduced a character who by the end of the season they're like, okay, I'm going home now, bye. And they really were like, we're gonna set up this character so you fall in love with this character, and by the end of it you're like, they were a good character. So it was kind of disappointing in the sense that they took up a lot of time to do that
Mm-hmm.
and then knock down all the dominoes. But I will say the quality of the show was great. It has consistently some of the best like score for music, not necessarily like, an opening song, ending song, but the songs that you don't think about really while you're watching the show, unless it's like a panoramic scene in Freerun. This had really great music, and it did a lot of things in the production that I enjoyed. It felt kind of like watching a comic book come to life, because they would be doing like a shot of like 2 characters talking, and then it would interrupt with like a panel in the middle of it to show a character expression, and then just kind of sideswipe to the next scene or whatever. So it did a lot of things that felt very comic booky, and it kind of gave it that feel like I am watching a Saturday morning cartoon, and I really enjoyed it. So overall, Shy season 2, heck of a lot better than season 1, but still missing some of the marks in
Yeah.
my opinion, but I was pleasantly surprised. Um, and then I think you may have watched this. I'm not sure. The Vtuber show.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this.
Yeah.
Did you watch all of it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I
I loved this show.
freaking amazing. I
I
adored this
I
show.
This show was so funny week in, week out.
Oh yeah.
I thought that like it was smart comedy, it was dumb comedy, it was streamer comedy. If you're
Yeah.
if you're watching like your favorite streamer and it's just like them poo-pooing and making jokes at the streamer about the streamer, that's all this show was. It felt like you were part of the audience and you were having a fun time watching the show. It was a delight from start to end.
Mhm.
Honestly, and the fact that they used like language that not necessarily kids use, but like lingo that is going around now, like gooning and other things like that, is just so
We'll
freaking funny.
we'll call it streamer or gamer colloquialisms.
Yeah, to me, it was a delight. It was just a breath of fresh air, and it was just really just a funny show.
Yeah. That's all this was. It was just a hoot and a half. It was just a blast. It was a blast to get through. I loved every single episode. Every single episode had its own like identity to it, with some recurring jokes and some new jokes. Like you knew every episode there was going to be something with Stro Zero, and you knew
Yeah.
there was going to be some new language that you just would not ever think would be uttered by this type of person, but it was. Yeah, it was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, because like first episode going into it, you're like VTuber legend, you know, how they became insanely popular overnight or something like that, or they accidentally left their stream on, right? That's the full title of the
How
anime.
it became popular, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So you're like, all right, that kind of spells out what's going to happen, right? And then you just don't know the extent to what that meant. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Okay. We have ourselves a show here. All right. But yeah, it was fun to get like into, they didn't go deep into characters, but it was fun to get to know the characters, and it was fun to like see the transition from this person who's like very reserved, and then like you see how them become who
Just
they really are.
unleash
Yeah.
the gremlin.
Unhinged, we'll say. And then they like see themselves later on when they become like the senpai of other like newer streamers. It was all around fun anime to watch.
I agree, 100%. Something that I watched that I thought I was gonna drop instantly, and it was just one of those things that I got more and more into it the further along I went. Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary. This was one of those shows that I was like, I think I'm gonna watch one episode of it just to see how it is, because it was kind of like the blurb was like a ominous detective show about high schoolers, and I liked it, but I was also slightly disappointed. In the first few episodes, they kind of alluded to something a bit darker, like that these characters used to do, that they would either like, you know, they fought crime or something like that, or they
Yeah.
did something darker, but they never got around to saying anything like that. There wasn't really necessarily anything darker to where they were like, yeah, I beat up this person, or like, you know, I fought crime, I killed villains, etc. I did this or that. They were just high school detectives that were very good about sleuthing, just random world problems. And other than Oshi No Ko, this was definitely the prettiest show I watched all season, which is surprising to say. It was 10 episodes, so it's a shorter season, but this was definitely the prettiest show that I watched all season. Like, the quality of the show was incredible. Every little bit of detail mattered and drew your eye in, whether it be in the corner or main center screen. Are you laughing or are you contemplating?
No, I'm just thinking. Continue.
Okay. But to me, this was just, it was a lesser version of Hyoka, if you've ever seen Hyoka. If you haven't, highly recommend going to watch it. It's like 22, 24 episodes of wonder. But to me, this was like a little bit of a lesser version of Hyoka, but I did not see the twist coming in the very last episode, in which they basically set up an entire arc that I did not see coming, because it didn't feel like that arc had really started. And it lasted nearly half of the season. So it was something I never picked up on, never I dreamed about until it happened. I was like, oh, what's going on?
Oh
And
my.
yeah, so to me, this was the surprise of the season, in my opinion.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed this show. It wasn't I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it wasn't necessarily like the most amazing show ever, but it was just something magnetizing about it that just kept drawing me in. It really, I know I've said it a lot tonight. It dug its claws in me and just kept me there. Like I had to watch the next episode. So
Okay.
that one was my dark horse of the season that I feel like I've seen a few episodes go around just purely for the fact of the animation
Hmm.
quality. Because there is a scene in like episode 3 where they're trying to solve a mystery of how Guy made hot chocolate, and it's the detail of just them stirring hot chocolate and making hot chocolate is
Oh,
incredible.
I was like, you showed me that. It's
Yeah,
it's
it was.
good. It's not like
I didn't show you the right scene. I've
whatever.
realized, but yeah. Anyways,
It's not that good. It's okay.
to me, Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, that was my dark horse of the season.
Wow. We'll get
Yeah.
back to your claim that it is the second prettiest next to Oshi No Ko, because I'm looking at my top 3 and I'm like, this motherfucker for sure forgot 2.
I'm s-
This you for sure forgot 2. That I'm like, there's no way in hell that it could beat out these other 2.
I know one that you're talking about. If the other one is Elusive Samurai, like it's up there.
There's no dude. That is the
There's a difference.
most.
There's a difference between art style being unique and awesome and physical flowing animation of just being very buttery smooth.
Yeah, you're talking about Elusive Samurai, right?
Ah, jeez.
Are you shitting me?
I'm not saying that Elusive Samurai wasn't pretty. It was pretty. It is very pretty. I'm just saying that the showmanship of the level of detail and in How to Become Ordinary was incredible.
I will defer to you since you watched it and I didn't. But I would like to remind you of like 20 plus scenes in Elusive Samurai that should have just left you with your jaw on the floor.
It did. It was.
Like,
it left.
Again, not animation, not like just pretty colors, like pure aesthetic, pure cinematics. Like we'll get into it for Elusive Samurai, but you are fucking high if you think that Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, has animation that could rival that of the top 2 in my list, and then Oshi No Ko at the very top. You are fucking smoking it if you think that you are true.
Hey, watch the show and you'll see.
No, you showed me a dude stirring hot chocolate, and I was like, I think my dude's having a stroke. Like this is just stirring a drink.
Anyways,
I'll go watch Bartender, God Bartender, whatever the fuck it's called.
that animation that hurt. It hurts sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you on? Do you have any other shows to talk about, or are you on your top 3?
I am on my top 3.
So I have one more, which is in your top 3, and that is Elusive Samurai. That is my number 4 show of this
All right.
season.
All right. That's fighting words. That's okay. I see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you'll see me in a couple of weeks. Elusive Samurai is my number 4 show of the season. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. It just didn't crack my top 3, and we'll talk about it more. But for now, it's time to talk about our top 3 for you. Just let me have it. Just give it to me. You're already mad at me.
Alya
so
sometimes hides her feelings in Russian is my 3rd.
That is also my number 3.
It was good. I thought it was a great slice of life. Again, it had a hook, albeit it's not crazy. It's nothing like amazing.
It didn't happen every episode, I feel like. It happened a majority of them, but not every.
Yeah, like it's fine. It's nothing. It wasn't anything to write home about from like a storyline or throughput. It was mainly the characters and their interactions with one another that I felt was the most entertaining of it all. Like Alya with our main character with Yuki, the main character with some of the other like guys in the class too, just even that, like those like small interactions, like that's what made it entertaining. That's what I found fun about it. And then you have the intensity of like it seems kind of like pompous to say, but like the like what am I trying to say? The high level class, like the hoity-toity, snotty type schools that people go to, you kind of want to just be like poo-poo on you. No one cares about you. You think you're pompous and all that. I was watching this and being like, I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty entertaining, just strictly from the standpoint that I know these motherfuckers are gonna go on to be like politicians and make bajillions of dollars as like CEOs and stuff. like when the one character came across the courtyard and effectively white gloves slapped the other one and was like, a duel, and they had a debate in school. My brain went to, where are the teachers? First off, like there's no teachers policing anything.
Yeah,
I don't think we saw a teacher once throughout this entire anime. I think like maybe for a split second, but I'm like, these kids are 15 and 16 years old mainly, and they're running this entire school. They have a fucking student congress where they debate their issues, and they're like, all in favor, nay, yay, the yays win. And it's like, I'm like, what the shit? I was like, at 15, I was barely assigned the ability to go hand out donuts to my class. Like that, I had to get permissions. Teachers had to be involved. Well, yeah. That's besides the point, though.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I thought it was really entertaining. I thought the animation was, it was good. It made it enjoyable to watch too. But the biggest draw were the characters, for sure. I think that's what held it all together and made it kind of a step above a lot of the other slice of life rom-coms that were coming out.
100%, and that's probably why I put it over Elusive Samurai, is that I enjoyed, like, as much as I enjoyed Elusive Samurai, which I did, and we'll get into it, I enjoyed the character interactions more in this show than I did Elusive Samurai, whether it's its whole plot, because it does have a plot. Alya is very loose in its plot. It does give a few through lines, but they're not like as important as a revenge for your fallen comrades and your family.
Yeah.
And your nation. But to me, I think that I had a more enjoyable time with Alya Hides Her Feelings in Russian because of all those supporting characters and how strong they were. They were so different from each other that each one felt very entertaining and fresh when they were introduced, and just trying to figure out where they fit in the friend group and where they kind of fit in this series. So
yeah,
I second everything that you just said about this series, but to me, I put it just a bit of a step up comparatively. So
fair enough.
Thoroughly agreed. Thoroughly loved this show. This is my number 3 and your number 3. So we're on the same page so far. What's your number 2?
I mean, I know what your list goes. It's no surprise. My number 2 is the Elusive Samurai.
All right, let's get into it.
I don't think I've been more impressed with animation than probably watching Chainsaw Man of recent, right?
Right.
Because there's plenty of older anime that I still love the animation in. Like I think it's like
you're already missing a show from between this and Chainsaw Man. But continue.
Oh, I meant like just there's a level of cinematography that is entirely captivating, and I think it's hard to hit that at times because there are instances where, because I'm thinking of like The Masterful Cat, I'm thinking of The Girl Who Forgot, Girl Who Always Loses Her Glasses. Like there's animation of that quality where they try to like add something new or like experiment with something
right
to make it unique, and it could land or it could kind of fail. Those are two examples where I'm like, I wasn't so much impressed by like the panning shots or these like wide fish lens craziness things that they were doing, so much so as like just the quality of the animation itself was fine enough, right? The show is not so much, but Elusive Samurai had almost every element that you would want in what I would consider to be like an animation masterpiece. The colors, the quality of like scene transitionings, the fact that they were able to utilize and leverage CGI in an effective way that didn't detract from the rest of the anime. Because there are times where people look at it and they go, "You gross, get it off my screen."
AKA, we had a horse in this series, so there was CGI.
But there were I think there was one other scene where there was no horse and there was still CGI. I think it was just like
It was a fight scene for
yes.
sure. I think it happened in one of the final. It was definitely the last episode.
It was
the
towards
last two episodes where they were just kind of like they had a lot of people on screen, so they're just like, let's just CGI some of them, including the main characters.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the anime.
Yeah.
But like that's hard too. There were so many scenes that stick out to me that I was thoroughly impressed by. Like how they married just the choreography of fight scenes with like this beautiful palette of colors that they chose for what is effectively like a pretty gruesome scene, to like how they just meld these different animation. Like people,
I'm just thinking of one of the scenes from the show where it's just like the guy's just like, hey, we're going over here now. He's like, okay, and he starts like stabbing the person. It's just the levity of it, but then the just brilliance of color.
I was going to talk about that.
It's really funny.
I was going to talk about that piece in a second, but like back to like the animation piece, a lot of people like were picking and choosing the different scenes from One Piece episodes, and like how like Gear 5, it was insanely impressive, right? With like how they made it so intense, but there was like still this goofy nature to it and stuff. And they had all these different like directors on it that were adding in their own styles, and it was immensely impressive. That's how I felt the entire season of the Elusive Samurai. Like it wasn't just one episode, it was like the entire season. I found moments in each and every episode where I'm just like, I'm floored by how they were able to like capture this, both in like style and animation and colors, like everything about it. So that's just one aspect. The other aspect is, which is probably the most challenging part, they were able to balance the level of, as you said, like levity and comedy and lightheartedness with what is effectively a tumultuous time in Japan.
This warring period.
Yeah, exactly. Like consistent warring. Like there was no level of peace at this time historically in Japan. Like there were very few moments of rest, whereas much of the time was spent in unrest, right? And so having to like balance that with also, you know, the understanding that your main character cast are children, right? So it's there is some lightheartedness in that regard, but there is some cruel reality of the world in that it's still war. There's still death surrounding everyone at all times. Like it's a challenging balance. I think it did it perfectly. You could argue that there were plenty of times where like yes, mid-fight they had some like weird conversational gag type moments, right? But it's not like they're fighting and then like they halt everything to like tell a quirky joke and then they go yuck 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 and then they get back to fighting. It's like post fight or like pre going into battle, whatever the case might be.
Yeah,
this was impressive. This anime was insanely impressive.
I was impressed by it too. I think the animation was stunning and the use of color was incredible. The fact that, again, it was a warring time. This was a very brutal period of history that they went through, that Japan went through, and the fact that got me the most, that I really enjoyed about this, is that they made it feel so everyday occurrence to these characters and to this setting that when it just happened. Like it happened throughout the show. Like anybody could die at any point in time, and it's exactly what happened in the show. They fit the period well for the fact that death was around any corner. You never knew when it was coming, and it showed. Like people weren't surprised. They're like, oh, another dead body. Because that's just what their life was like. And I think that in the regard of trying to set a setting or like create a setting that is so outside of our norm and knowledge, because for the most part, I will say a majority of the world has not been in warring times. There are exceptions to that, which we're not going to get into for this podcast, but for a majority of us that are, who have the, are able to listen to this, we probably do not know warring time. So this is not like a normal occurrence, but the fact that they were able to make this feel like that is incredible. And it was really, it's weird thinking that this is a Shonen Jump series. This is a weekly Shonen Jump series. It's
Yeah.
been going on for 4 years, I think. It's in the 160s, I think, for chapters. So it's in its fourth or fifth
It's up
year,
there.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I'd always seen it, never watched it or never read it. I was like, you know what, let's watch this because Hulu's kind of done okay with their selection of Shonen Jump shows, but there hasn't been anything excellent. I will say
Oh,
Undead
Bleach.
Unluck. Okay, other than Bleach.
Yeah.
Bleach is the exception. Undead Unluck was very good, but not like critical must-watch TV. Mission Yozakura Family, that was good, but it wasn't must-watch TV. I forgot that it continued this season. I didn't watch an episode of it. I watched the entirety of the first core, but not the second. So it's just one of those things that to me, this was much must-watch. I watched week to week. I don't think I missed a Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was. Every weekend, I watched this series. I had to because it was enthralling.
Yeah.
Again, I thought I enjoyed my time with Alya a little bit more. That's all. That's all I'll say about that. But no, I second everything you've said, but I also just want to add the fact that they nailed the setting down so well that it was scary.
Yeah. I think too, just kind of to wrap it up on the setting piece, because it is hard to capture. I think the only other anime that did it better, because I do think it is better, and I believe it takes place probably 250 to 300 years after this time period, if I remember correctly, is Blue-Eyed Samurai. Similar,
still one that I need to watch.
Yeah, but like that is an example of one where it is strictly drama. Like there's no real comedy to it.
There's no comedy to it.
No,
yeah.
It is high level intensity. It is action packed from start to finish. Like it is intense. So if you're looking for one that's like, you know, I want more blood and gore and like high action, less comedy and children, go watch Blue-Eyed Samurai. But if you're looking for a great historical piece that captures like the time period, as you noted, has some levity to it where it needs to be, because let's face it, it's be insanely depressing watching it just like that all the way through. And then some of the best art style, animation, cinematography that you can imagine. Elusive Samurai kind of checks the boxes on all of those.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's Elusive Samurai. That's your number 2. My number 2, which is probably your number 1, Makeine, Too Many Losing Heroines, is my number 2, and I know you know what my number 1 is. So
yeah, you should just say your number 1. You should just say your number 1.
My number 1 is Oshi No Ko season 2.
Oh yeah, like everyone else.
I thoroughly love this series. Season 2 is like, I know season 1 started incredibly. That episode 1 drew you in, and then episode 2, 3, and onwards is like, what the hell is this compared to episode 1? So for it to like actually develop its plot, kind of just like here are the characters' settings now in season 1, and here's the general loose plot line in season 1, to get to season 2 and where we're at. There's one more episode left in the season, but for this second season, to what it's done and how it's developed the characters, because it's shown a spotlight definitely on Aqua this season a lot. It was incredible. They did a phenomenal, like the manga itself is phenomenal, and I think that this arc that they did, the theater arc, was incredible as well. But to see it actually drawn out and do a little bit of a different change, in which they kind of they don't do a whole lot of jumping, but they did a little bit of jumping from the beginning of the season in that arc and throughout it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a bit later in that arc that they were like, okay, we're just giving you the through line, and here's not one for one, but here is the plot.
Right.
Or here is the same thing as the manga. I think that they did an incredible job. They did the animation in this is definitely the best by far this season. The episode 1 is a feast for the eyes, and let alone the remainder of the season. I knew where it was heading and how it was going to end because I know how the next episode is going to go and where it's going to end the season. And this past episode that just aired last Wednesday, as of recording, we are recording on Monday, the 30th of September. So this past Wednesday, episode 22 or 23, whatever it was, that I knew what was going to happen that episode. And that was the single most scene that I was looking forward to in this season, because that's where, timeline wise, how I figured that they would end it. That was the most important part of this entire season, and how they handled it was excellent. It was perfection. They did everything I wanted it to and more. And I think that this series is something special, despite how you may feel of maybe like a bait and switch from season 1 of like, here's a show about an idol that gets murdered and then their kids growing up and trying to find it, or the father, so that they can kill the father or whatever. That's Aqua's plot line, for it to kind of be a little bit of a bait and switch and just be like towards like the entertainment, like putting like a lens on the entertainment of Japan. I can't think of words, like my brain is stopped just now. I think that season 2 does a lot better of a job in pacing, storytelling, character development, and just generally everything. Granted, the animation is about the same. I think it's a bit better in season 2, just for the fact that there are more set piece moments in season 2 than there were in season 1 outside of that first episode.
Yeah.
But to me, Oshi No Ko season 2 by far, hands down, number 1 show of the season. But we'll go back to my number 2 and your number 1, because honestly, I wanted to give this the number 1 of the season. I really did. But the way they handled the last episode of last week's episode of Oshi No Ko.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't.
I was gonna say the last episode of Makeine, them's so fighting
good.
words.
This was so good. But yeah, Makeine, too many losing heroines. My number 2, your number 1. Give the audience your feelings on it, because I have a lot of feelings about this as well, and I know that we're going to share similar plot points, and I've just been talking for a while. So
the thing with Makeine is that I really don't want to give much away, because it is like a very layered slice of life. I think its charm comes from how it's developed to the audience, like how everything is portrayed, how everything is kind of shared through the lens of its characters. I love the dynamics of the characters. I love the conversations between the characters. I love how it's natural. I think that's kind of like the best piece to it all, is that it comes off as very, this I can see this happening at a school. Like I can see this taking place. These conversations are, I can imagine them happening, whether it's like me personally or just like in general. Like seems very apropos for like the setting, right? It's not over exaggerated. It's not like too tropey or anything. It is just how you would imagine these types of characters to be interacting with one another.
As the title says, it's too many losing heroines. All of our heroines, all of our main.
No, I will.
Like they are just lost when it comes to love, and the way that it happens and the way that everything transpires about all 3 of their characters is very relatable. It is very like this seems rooted in real life. Like this could happen to anybody. Yeah, I think what you're getting at.
No, I mean, I'm going even more granular than that, right? Like, characters aside, like, what makes them into the characters they are for the anime as too many losing heroines? Like, they all have some fallout of a lover, some missed opportunity, whatever the case might be, right? It's a sob story for boohoo, I missed my opportunity, here I am, world, take me now, right? And then it's them banding together to form this unified party of like, you know, let's try to find some commonplace. What's our commonplace? We all struck out on love. Great. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like just how they interact with one another. The charm of this anime stems from its simplicity in that these characters talk like how you would imagine normal people do. A lot of the times you can get kind of pushed away from an anime, or the veil sort of disappears, especially for a slice of life and rom-com style, when the conversations become too like dramatized, when they become too over exaggerated, when they become too like far reaching, where you're like, this is not something I can even imagine anyone in this world ever uttering. So it's like I've now lost that like, I've lost that lens of like, oh, this is relatable, to now it's like, no, this is completely like otherworldly. Like this is fictionalized to a T. This anime was like from start to finish, I'm like, this is just, you are getting a like, it's as if you're watching The Office and you're just the camera crew running around and following these characters, right? This is just real life. Like this is just them talking. This is so relatable on many levels that's what makes it so charming. And it's such a pleasure to watch. I'm not even going to get to the fact that this is probably one of the most just visually appealing slice of life. Not the characters, everything else about it. Like all of the backdrop scenes, all these panning shots, they are gorgeous for no reason other than to just show off. Like it is stunning. And we talked about it early on too in like a first reaction, and I made the comment that this anime is realistic from the standpoint that they don't try to make everything look sparkly clean. Like they show images of their school where there's rust everywhere. They show images where there's like garbage kind of strewn about near the garbage can. They show images where like the water is kind of sputtering out of the water fountain a little awkwardly. Like nothing is picture perfect. Nothing is pristine. It is normalcy. And I think that rooted me into this early on to be like, this is just watching a school. Like this is just watching students go through normal life. This is something that is highly relatable.
We have him. Hello, FBI, we have him. He's watching school.
Yeah. But like, no. That's why I loved it so much. I think that's what makes it so perfect, is because it has this unique charm in that it is.
It's really funny that we do say that it is grounded so heavily in that, like in the sense that we can see this happening to like any person. Like this happens in high school.
It's shaped in reality.
What's hilarious though is the main, I wouldn't even say main girl, but the first losing heroine that we have, who loses her basically childhood sweetheart or childhood friend to basically big boobied anime girl, other girl,
cotton candy hair, the whole like trope.
I'm pretty sure this just happened to one of the Vikings football players, where he had a friend that was a girl that they weren't dating, they weren't together, and this girl complained that another girl came in and swooped her man, but they were never officially together. And it's just like, oh, this hurts because I just watched an anime version of this that was 10 times cuter and not like complaining.
It happens all the time.
It's like holy. It just happened. It just happened in real fucking life to an adult.
It happens all the time.
Really funny. Yeah, no, it was just like one of those things I looked at. I was like, God damn it, this is just too many losing heroines. Yeah. They lost their friend to another girl.
And the thing I want to say too, before, and I want to interrupt you for a purpose, and that is, I want to leave it at that. I don't want to even divulge any more than just what we've talked about, because the beauty of this anime is not knowing what's going to happen next, because it's not something that's going to blow your socks away from like ooh, didn't see this coming, or oh my God, I wonder what this like such a cliffhanger, right? It is, you are walking through the daily life of people that are, you know, they're going through a period in a life where they face heartbreak. One of them, not so much, kind of just gets roped into it all, right? But it's watching them grow, watching them, you know, kind of shape themselves into who they want to imagine themselves being in the future. Like there's a lot of character growth in that. And that's again the staple to many anime, but especially slice of life, is some level of character growth and character development. And I think this anime has a bountiful amount of that. So
Yeah.
but I want to leave it at that. Like
Okay.
go in blind, people. Like if you're like, I'm in the mood for a nice carefree funny slice of life
And you haven't watched this
and
one?
yeah, exactly. If you haven't watched Makeine, Too Many Losing Heroines, this should be on your list. Like there are plenty that you can watch too. This one should be towards the top.
I'd
for
agree.
sure.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And it's my number 2 of the season, just behind Oshi No Ko. Like, you last season with fucking what's it called?
Bro, I can't even remember what I
Jobless
watched yesterday.
It was Jobless Reincarnation, and then I forget what the second show is that you had for second place. Like, it was going to win. It was the second best show, and then just freaking Jobless Reincarnation. Just...
Oh, Mashoko Tensei took the cake though. Like It
Yeah.
was hard to beat the last episode of Mashoko
Yeah.
Tensei. Well, the last like couple of episodes, I should say.
That's how I kind of feel with Makeine and also Oshi No Ko. Like Oshi No Ko just hit that once perfectly to the point where it's like there's no coming back from it.
I feel like the beauty and also the downfall of the season so far, because again, we are getting just so much.
Oh, it's jellyfish.
Yeah, jellyfish. We're getting so much fucking anime season to season. Is that top three?
Would be insane.
Top threes are normally like pretty easy to map out. There might be a battle between like 1 and 2 at times or something, but top threes are usually pretty easy to weed out. It's that like middle area between like the bad and the no, it's good, I watched it, right?
Yeah.
It's that grouping there where you're just like, there's just so much piled in this.
Yeah.
Like if you told me to rank my top 10, I would tell you to go pound sand, kick rocks. Like,
that's fair.
it'd be impossible. I'd just be like, I don't know.
I am going to tell you to rank your 10 in the sense of we're going to give the season a ranking. And I want to. I don't know if you have a letter grade for this because I definitely do.
It's so this one's always so hard to rank like season to season. If I had to give this one a ranking, I would give it just a straight B.
Okay.
I think the continuing seasons, albeit I did not watch them, I having read some of them and understanding where most of them are heading to just through other peers that are watching them.
Yeah.
I've only heard nothing but good things. Okay, so I'll give the continuing series passing grades. Shy, I guess it's up in the air, but it's better than season 1 according to you. I'm gonna eventually watch it because I did watch all of season 1. So from that regard, I'll give it a passing grade. The issue stemmed from the new series, not just the originals, but just new series coming out, and there was a major gap between what was like good and what was like downright bad. And so I feel like that gives it kind of just that B level. I wanted to give it a B minus, but I'm like, I had so many fun new anime that I enjoyed thoroughly that it's hard for me to just give it a B minus because those would be A tier. But then you had like Pseudo Harem, My Wife Has No Emotion, in my opinion, Mayonaka Punch. You had Plus Size Elf. You had all the other ones that I just did not ever get to because they just didn't interest me either. That kind of fall down into that lower bracket of like, it's just not good and would give like a D. So I think B is probably the more appropriate grade for the season. Like spectacular, but not astonishing, like through and through.
So for me, I am gonna give it a B minus. I came into this actually thinking that I would give it a C plus, but I'm gonna give it a B minus.
Wow.
In the sense of that the shows that were continuing, as you said, were very good. They were consistent with what they've kind of developed. The only exception really being Oshi No Ko season 2.
Yeah.
In which that is the exception. That is the one show that was exceptional.
Yeah.
But when it comes to everything that was new, there were maybe 2 shows that were exceptional and the rest kind of felt middling to just like generic. to the point where I thought to myself, like, if this season was just full of 8s and 7s, 7s and 8s, it's a C plus or a B minus. And the more I talked about it, the more I actually did really enjoy some of those other middling shows that I would give it more of a B minus than I would a C plus. There was nothing that was other than Alya, Elusive Samurai, and Makeine. There was nothing else that was exceptional. Everything else was good to middling. Like granted, a show can be very entertaining, but still be not good. Like it could still be a
Yeah.
stick, but be very entertaining. Like to me, the VTuber show that was very entertaining, but all in all, if I'm putting a critique to it or a review to it, it's a 7. It's good.
I don't know. I try to look at everything holistically. I don't think,
Right.
speaking pragmatically and somewhat realistically as well, I don't think we're ever going to get a season that's an A. That's a straight A. Might get a strong B plus, maybe even up to an A minus. I don't think any season's going to hit an A ever, because the grading critique would mean like almost everything you're watching plus even the extras that you don't watch are at least passable, right?
I honestly think if anything it's gonna be next season. Like next season has the best chance of that.
No, I mean, there's an opportunity. There's always a chance. I don't foresee there ever being a season where I would look at it and go, you know what? I would watch most everything. I'd give it a 1 episode. I would say maybe like a handful are not that great, but then the rest are passable up to exceptional. That would be where I would that would be where I'd say this season is an A. I just don't ever foresee that happening, where I would look at every single anime and go, you know what? There's only a few of you that look like dog doo-doo, but the rest, I'm on board. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think next season's going to be very interesting because I feel like we're either going to hit we are going to have a lot of highs in the sense that there are going to be very high-profile shows coming out. I mean, you got Season 3 of ReZero, Blue Lock Season 2, Uzumaki, which started this past weekend, Don to Don, for us, Season 5 of Danmachi, the next part of Bleach, Shangri-La Frontier Season 2, Sword Art Online Season 2, Blue Box.
Wait, Sword Art Online Gun Gal Season 2, right?
Gun Gal, sorry.
Yeah.
Sword Art Online Gun Gal Season 2.
Thank you. There's a difference.
The next season of Blue Exorcist, Dragon Ball Daima, which could be very much of a toss-up.
This sounds like this
65 Days to the Wedding, Ranma 1/2.
This sounds like the season.
Tamahashi Season 2.
Calm down. Calm down.
Like there's so much.
This sounds like the season of new series killers, meaning that most everyone are just going to watch those continuing series.
Yeah, the only what stinks is like the Dragon Ball is going to be the biggest new quote unquote new show.
Yeah,
the one show that I want to take off
365 days to the wedding. Yeah. I know,
and it's gonna be eclipsed so hard.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be just down in the bottom. The only show that I can foresee actually creeping out of any abyss would be Orb.
No, I mean, as much as it intrigues me. Again, I have the first 2 omnibuses for Orb.
I also forgot about this show. Shoot, the Megalomare Magical.
Yeah, Megalomare Magical. Yeah, like the Magical Ink. That one's gonna be great too. No, there's next season again. To your point, could reach an A for sure. But the trouble with that is I don't have 10 hours a day for the next 3 months to watch anime. I wish I did. I wish I could sit in my house, watch anime, make content for it, and get paid for it, but no one's going to do that for me right now. I have to have a normal 8 to 5. So if I want to,
viewers support us very enough, like watching the entirety of this
only you can make our dreams come true. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, next season's going to be strong. If you want to hear our thoughts on it too, we do our review or our preview,
last week.
Yeah, last week. Last week's episode is our fall preview. But
it's going to be crazy.
Summer was great. Fall though,
fall's going to be wild.
Hang on to your pants, folks. It's going to be a wild ride.
Indeed it is. And thank you so much for joining us this week. We greatly appreciate it.
On this wild ride.
Let us know what you watched this season, whether you agree with our opinions or not, whether you agree that Elusive Samurai is a 4 rather than 3rd, slot of this season. Where you rank Wand or Wisteria, Wand, and Sword? Because honestly, I really am looking forward to watching more of that.
You're saying
Let
all
us
like
know
the
what you want.
stupidest shit. Whether or not you think 2.5 Dimensional Seduction is actually good. There you go. How about that one?
Yes, there you go. Sure, fine. But let us know what you watched, what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Any and all feedback would be greatly appreciated. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. So until then, Spark Triumph. We'll see you later.